Hello, and welcome back to Quantitative Skills at the University of West Georgia. Today we're going to be covering Chapter 6, which is unit conversions. So converting between feet and meters, for example. Before we get started, I'd like you to head over to your course den. Here on your course den, under Content, I've got a handout that'll help you with this section. So if you go to Handouts, the very first one is called Unit Conversions. This is a list of all of the conversion equations that you need to know for this section. This list will also be available during your unit test. So go ahead and pause the video and pull this up on another screen or print it out if you'd like it. And then we'll get started with the computations. All right. So in the United States, we use the customary system. So we would measure length in terms of feet, inches, yards, and miles. Most of the rest of the world uses the metric system, where they measure length in meters. So a meter is about the same length as a yard. It's a little bit more than 3 feet. So in metric, if they want to talk about something small that we would measure with inches, what they do is use a metric prefix. For example, if I want to talk about something small on the size of inches, I could use centimeters. The prefix centi means 1/100th. So there are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. If I want to talk about something even smaller, I can use millimeters. Metric was planned ahead of time to make sense and be easy to use, so they only have 1 unit for each measurement, 1 unit for length, meters, 1 for mass, grams, and 1 for volume, liters. If I want to talk about a small volume, I use milliliters. Milli means 1/1000, so there would be 1000 millimeters in 1 meter. For things that we would measure in miles, in metric they use kilometers. And 1 kilometer, since kilo means 1,000, is worth 1,000 meters. There are other metric prefixes. You can look those up online, but these are the 3 that we're going to use in this class. All right. So contrary to metric, the customary system and others like the imperial system were not planned in advance to be easy to use. These developed out of historical circumstances. As a matter of fact, until 1959, the United States inch was 3 millionths longer than the United Kingdom inch. So in 1959, US law codified a compromise where both inches would now be the same length, and 1 inch is defined as exactly 2.54 centimeters. Okay, so let's say I have something that's 6 inches long, and I need to convert that to centimeters. Do I multiply by 2.54? Do I divide by 2.54? You might know the answer, but I've got a system to show you that'll help us keep track of that answer in all cases. So here's a tool that's going to always help us decide whether to multiply or divide by the conversion factor. It's called a unit fraction. Since I know that 6 inches is equal to 1 centimeter, excuse me, that's not correct. Since I know that 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters, I can draw a fraction with one of those values on top and the other value on bottom. So I could write it like this: 1 inch divided by 2.54 centimeters. Or I could write it like this: 2.54 centimeters divided by 1 inch. And both of these are called unit fractions. You know, they're for converting between different units of measurement, but here unit means equal to 1. So I've got 2 facts for you about unit fractions. The first fact is that if I divide a number by itself, that's equal to 1. And if I divide a number by something else that's equal to that number, even if it's not written the same, it's still equal to 1. So these unit fractions, the top and bottom aren't written the same, but since they are the same value, they're the same length in the world, the unit fraction is equal to 1. Second fact, whatever I have, some number x, if I multiply it by 1, I get x back. So it is still equal to 1. One moment. Sorry about that. So what I can do is if I multiply 6 inches by a unit fraction, it will still measure 6 inches. It'll just have different units. So which of these two unit fractions should I multiply by? We're going to take 6 inches, and now I'd like to get rid of the inches and have my answer in centimeters. So I'm drawing the bar for a unit fraction here. I'm going to pick this one, because when I put 1 inch on the bottom and 2.54 centimeters on top, inches cancels on the top with inches on the bottom, and my final answer is just 6 times 2.54 centimeters. That makes 15.24 centimeters. So 6 inches is a little over 15 centimeters. Right. If I were instead trying to convert 50 centimeters to inches, I would use this version of the unit fraction. Since I have centimeters on top, I need to cancel it with centimeters on the bottom. And so centimeters on top cancels with centimeters on the bottom. And I need to do 50 divided by 2.54 to get my answer in inches. The only unit that survived canceling is inches, so this is in inches. And we get approximately 19.7 inches. Okay, so that's how a unit fraction can help us to tell whether to multiply or divide by the conversion factor. For small problems like this, you might be able to tell the answer on your own. For very large problems, the unit fraction can be very helpful in planning out what to do. So knowing that 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters, I start to wonder, in America, we use miles for long distances. In the metric system, they use kilometers. So 1 mile is how many kilometers? I can use unit fractions to help me find out. First, I need to make a plan for what fractions I'll use to convert from miles to kilometers. Now I know to get from customary to metric, the only thing we have defined in law is the inch. So I'll need to go from inches to centimeters in the middle of this problem. To get from miles to inches, I can go through the foot. I know how many feet are in a mile and how many inches are in a foot. And if you've forgotten the number, it's okay. It's not a very, it's a strange number, 5,280. That's also on your handout. Meanwhile, to get from centimeters to kilometers, I can go through the meter. Every one of these 5 arrows is going to be a unit fraction in our computation. We'll start with 1 mile. Now I need to get rid of miles and go to feet. So to cancel out a mile on top, I put miles on the bottom and feet on top. I know from the fact 5,280 feet equals 1 mile, I have numbers to put with feet and miles. If I put 5,280 feet on top and 1 on bottom, the top and bottom are worth the same, so in effect I'm multiplying by 1. The length I'm measuring hasn't changed, it's still 1 mile, but now it's written as 5,280 feet. Now we want to get rid of those feet and go into inches. So we'll put feet on bottom and inches on top, and I know that 12 inches is equal to 1 foot. This cancels out the feet units, and now our answer is 5,280 times 12 inches. Next, I'd like to get rid of inches, so I put those on the bottom and centimeters on the top. If you're asking what numbers to fill in, typically it's the larger unit that gets the number 1, and the smaller unit needs several of them to fit into one of the larger. In this case, 2.54 centimeters makes 1 inch. Okay, now it's time to go from centimeters to meters. So I'll put centimeters on the bottom to cancel it out, meters on the top to bring it in. Which one of those is larger? A meter is about 3 feet. A centimeter is less than half an inch. So 1 meter is large. I remember that centi means 1/100th. I know that 100 centimeters is 1 meter. And that fact is on your handout if you forget. Okay, last step, we're going to get rid of meters and go into kilometers. So I need to put meters on the bottom so it'll cancel. 1 kilometer is a long distance. Campus is about 1 kilometer wide. There are 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. So I need many meters to make 1 kilometer. That's why 1 goes with the larger unit. Okay, let's see what we need to do with all these numbers. The answer is now in kilometers. You know that multiplying by 1 doesn't do anything, so I can cross these out. Dividing by 1 doesn't change the answer either, so these are gone. I just need to multiply by all the numbers in the numerator and divide by all the numbers in the denominator. Okay, and so when I multiply these three numbers, I get 1,000, that's right, 1609344. It had a decimal point right here. These numbers together make a 1 with 5 zeros. So to get my final answer, I need to move this decimal point 5 places. 1 mile is exactly 1.609344 kilometers. No more and no less. That's all the decimal points that number has. All right. You know, in our customary United States system, I wouldn't tell you that someone is 80 inches tall. I'd tell you that person is 6 feet 8 inches. We like to break our units into feet and inches or pounds and ounces. In metric, they don't have to do that. How many meters is 1609344 kilometers? Well, to get from kilometers to meters, I just need to multiply by 1,000. And multiplying by 1,000 is as easy as moving the decimal place. So this is the same as 1,609 meters. Or if I wanted the answer in millimeters, I could multiply by 1,000 again. 1,609,344 millimeters. So it's very easy to convert between one denomination of meter and another. The metric prefixes were planned out to make this system easy to use. Let's do another example of unit fractions. This time the unit fractions are really going to help us. Last time, maybe we could still get through this without unit fractions. This next one is a pretty tough problem. Let's say you're on the highway and you're driving 55 miles per hour. Do you remember what that means? If you take a 2-hour trip and travel 110 miles, we can find out your velocity like this. 110 miles divided by 2 hours makes 55, and the units are miles per hour. But another way to write those units is miles divided by hour. Per means divide. So when I have 55 miles an hour, I can write that 55 miles divided by hours. Okay. Miles per hour is great for long trips, but for telling how long it takes my car to stop, I need units that are more immediate and present. So I'm going to convert this to feet per second. I want to know, if you're driving the speed limit on the highway, how many feet of concrete does your car pass over every second? That'll give me a better idea of the forces involved. So we need to change miles to feet and hours to seconds. Changing miles to feet is pretty simple. I have miles on top, so I'll copy miles to the bottom, and that'll make the two of them cancel out. We need one on top and one on bottom to cancel. I know that a mile is large and feet are small. There are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. Okay, now it's time to get rid of hours. I don't know how many seconds are in an hour, but I can find out by going from hours to minutes to seconds. I know there's 60 minutes in an hour and 60 seconds in a minute. All right, so far I have a copy of hours in the denominator. So if I want to get rid of hours, I need to cancel it out by putting hours in the numerator. So our unit fractions help us to tell whether to multiply or divide. In this case, since 60 minutes makes 1 hour, I need to divide by 60. Okay, third and final fraction. We're going to get rid of minutes. Since we already have 1 on bottom, we can cancel it with 1 on top. And I know that 1 minute is worth 60 seconds. So the smaller unit has a larger number. Okay, in our calculator, we can ignore the ones. We need to do 55 times 5,280 divided by 60 and divided by 60 again. Now, you also know that to multiply fractions, you multiply all the numerators and multiply all the denominators. So another way to get this same answer is 55 times 5,280 divided by 3,600. And that's because 60 times 60 is 3,600. So there are 3,600 seconds in an hour. What I mean to say is, if you'd like, you can multiply all the denominators first and then divide by that number to reduce the number of errors from typing things into your calculator with multiple division signs. Different calculators handle multiple division signs differently, so we type this into our calculator and we get 80.6666. It's a 6 repeating. And now let's look at the units. Miles cancels with miles, and feet remain. Hours on bottom cancels hours on top. Minutes cancels minutes. So our final answer has feet in the numerator and seconds in the denominator. That's exactly what we want, feet divided by seconds, feet per second. So if you're driving 55 miles an hour, your car is moving 80.666 feet every second. Here's something we can do. In the customary system, we don't normally give a decimal number of feet. We give our answer in feet and inches. So 80.6666 feet is how many feet and inches. What I'm going to do is just put a whole number of feet. We have 80 feet and 0.666 more feet. There are a few different ways to solve this problem. The way that I like personally is to just convert this leftover decimal into inches. So I'd get rid of 1 foot and go into 12 inches. In my calculator, then, I would do 0.6666 times 12 and get 8. So we have 80 feet and 8 inches. That's one way to solve the problem. Let's start a new example, and I'll show you another way to solve this same problem. In the homework, they're going to ask you to take 1,041 inches, or thereabouts, and convert that into yards, feet, and inches. And you'll have 3 boxes to put these in. We want to make as many yards as possible, a whole number of yards, and then we want the number of feet to be between 0 and 2, and the number of inches to be between 0 and 11. If I had more than 12 inches, I would turn some of them into a foot. And if I had more than 3 feet, I would turn some of them into a yard. Now, I showed you the way I like to solve these problems, by multiplying the decimal. That tends not to be the way that students prefer, so let me show you the way students tend to prefer. I need to convert inches to yards. To get from inches to yards, I can go through feet. There are 12 inches in a foot and 3 feet in a yard. Anytime you know 2 unit fractions, you can use them to make a new unit fraction that you can use later. So 1 yard, convert that from yards to feet. There are 3 feet in 1 yard, and there are 12 inches in 1 foot. Yards cancels yards and feet cancels feet. What I get is 36 inches. So 1 yard is 36 inches. Now, anytime I need to turn yards into inches, I can make a unit fraction out of my new fact. 1 yard is worth 36 inches. So every time you solve a unit fraction problem, your answer can also make a new unit fraction. It saves you time later. Okay, so in my calculator, to change inches to yards, I need to divide by 36. I got 28.916666. In my method, I multiplied the decimal back by 36 to see how many inches are left over. Students don't tend to prefer that. What this tells us is that we got 28 complete yards. Dividing by 36, we could make 28 yards. We didn't have enough inches to make 29 yards. So we're going to make 28 yards and see what's left over. Here's an easier way to see what's left over. I have 28 yards that I just built. I built them out of inches. Let's see how many inches we spent to build 28 yards. We turned 28 times 36 inches into 28 yards. I go in my calculator and I find 28 times 36 is 1008. So I spent 1008 inches to make 28 yards. I started with 1041 inches and I spent 1008. Those got built into yards. So there are 33 inches remaining. Okay? We used up 1008 inches. There are 33 inches left. And we're not going to put 33 in the inches box. We still want to make these into feet and inches. 1 foot is 12 inches. That would fit. 2 feet is 24 inches. That would fit. 3 feet is 36 inches. That's too much. So we're going to go with 2 feet is 24 inches. Of my 33 inches remaining, I can turn 24 of them into 2 feet. So I will make 2 feet and put that in the box up here. What's left? Well, I have 33 inches. I just spent 24 of them to make 2 feet. 33 minus 24 is 9. So I have 9 inches left over that I wasn't able to build into feet and yards. I will put those right here. That's how you solve that problem. And that's the end of section 6.1. Thanks for watching.